May 5th, 1945, a medieval castle in the Austrian Alps. Inside its walls, two former prime ministers of France, a world #1 tennis champion, two French generals. Guarding them, a dozen American soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder with the German army. Outside the gates, over 100 SS troops, with orders to leave no witnesses. Schloss Itter had stood on this hill for nearly 700 years, rebuilt as a Renaissance manor in the 1500s. And by the 20th century, it had settled into a much quieter life. The German government leased the castle in 1940. The SS seized it outright. Within 10 weeks, this hotel on a hilltop became a prison, a 5-star cage for the Reich's most valuable hostages. By the spring of 1945, Castle Itter's prisoners looked like pages torn from a French history book. These were men who had commanded governments, armies, and national attention. Now they were locked inside the same castle, and several of them despised one another. But before the week was over, old rivals would be forced onto the same side of a gunfight. By late April, the Third Reich was collapsing. But the prisoners weren't only waiting for liberation. They feared what the SS might do moments before the Allies arrived. On May 2nd, Eduard Weiter was found dead inside the castle. 2 days later, Castle Itter's commandant and the remaining SS guards vanished into the mountains. For one strange moment, the prisoners were free, except the forest surrounding them was still filled with SS units willing to kill in a war Germany had already lost. The prisoners found weapons in the abandoned armory, but they had no reliable way to call for help, and no idea how close the Americans were. Their first chance of survival came from a man almost nobody remembers. A Croatian handyman walked out of the castle on May 3rd under the pretense of running an errand. Then he kept going, through German-held territory, and along the Inn Valley toward Innsbruck, nearly 40 miles away. Late that night, exhausted, he found an American patrol and told them who was trapped inside the castle. An armored rescue force moved at dawn, but shellfire stopped it. Then the entire column was recalled because Castle Itter technically belonged to another American division's operating area. In the final days of the war, a line on a military map nearly condemned everyone inside. Not knowing whether Chukovich had succeeded, the prisoners sent a second messenger, their Czech cook, pedaling toward Virgil in broad daylight. They now had 2 messengers outside the walls, and no way to know if either one had made it. In Virgil, Major Josef Sepp Gangl was already preparing to turn against the regime he had served. With Germany finished, his final mission was to protect local civilians from SS units still threatening to destroy the town. On May 4th, Gangl approached an American armored unit commanded by Lieutenant John Jack Lee, Jr. He told Lee that high-profile French prisoners were trapped nearby, and that the SS was closing in. Lee acted immediately. He gathered 1 Sherman tank, Besottin Jenny, and Gangl himself. 4 miles from the castle, the mixed American-German unit hit an SS roadblock, fought through it, and kept moving. Men whose armies had spent years killing one another were now riding toward the same battle. When the convoy reached Castle Itter, the prisoners rushed outside and stared in disbelief. They had expected an armored division. What arrived was 1 tank, roughly a dozen Americans, and a handful of German defectors. Lee knew he couldn't safely evacuate everyone across open countryside, so he made the only choice left: stay and defend the castle. Besottin Jenny blocked the main gate. Rifles were passed to anyone able to fire one. Former prime ministers, retired generals, and a tennis champion took positions beside American GIs and German soldiers. That night, an SS patrol tested the castle's defenses. Beyond the walls, more than 100 Waffen-SS troops were gathering with machine guns and an 88mm gun capable of destroying Lee's only tank. Inside, the defenders counted their ammunition and waited in the darkness. At dawn, the attack began. Machine gun fire tore across the battlements as shells slammed into the castle's stone walls. Then came the battle's most tragic moment. Former French Prime Minister Paul Reynaud was caught exposed in the open. Gangl moved to pull him to safety, and an SS sniper shot Gangl first. He became the only defender killed in the battle, an Austrian resistance fighter dying to protect a French statesman, beside American soldiers he had met less than a day earlier. With the tank gone, the telephone line cut, and ammunition running low, Lee pulled the defenders toward the castle's inner keep. The SS began closing in for the final assault. Inside Itter, the remaining defenders prepared for the gates to be blown open. Then, through the gunfire, they heard tank engines. At around 4 in the afternoon, the American relief column struck the SS from behind. The attackers, suddenly trapped between the castle and advancing armor, collapsed within minutes. Close to 100 SS troops were captured. The siege was over. The French prisoners returned home. 2 days after the battle, Germany surrendered. Castle Itter still stands in Tyrol, quiet and almost unmarked. But on May 5, 1945, its walls witnessed one of the strangest battles of the Second World War. American soldiers, German soldiers, resistance fighters, politicians, generals, and a tennis champion fighting side by side against the SS. For one impossible afternoon, the final battle lines of the war were redrawn.